saw darkness run for cover, but the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. I believe in signs and wonders. I have resurrection power. Still the miracle that I just can't get over, my name is registered in heaven. Yeah, my praise belongs to you forever. This is my testimony from death to life. His grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. Come together, sons and daughters, bought with blood and washed in water. Sing the praises of the Spirit, Son, and Father. Our God will finish what He started. Oh, our God will finish what He started. This is my testimony from death to life. 'Cause grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, you're not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, I'm not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. If I'm not dead, I'm not done. Greater things are still to come. Oh, I believe. Oh, I believe. This is my testimony from death to life. His grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. This is my testimony from death to life. Because grace rewrote my story. I'll testify. By Jesus Christ the righteous, I'm justified. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. This is my testimony. This is my testimony.
All right, welcome to Sunday Morning Online. We're so glad that you've chosen this morning to click on and watch. And we
jump
just
on
are-
our live stream here
Absolutely.
Sunday morning.
You betcha.
We've had some great weather.
Yeah, we've been enjoying great weather. And again, I just want to thank you. It's important for us sign in, watch. We love when you make comments, because one of the things that we are missing is interaction with you.
Yes.
And all of us are wrestling through our circumstances.
Yes.
And we want to make it the best that they can be.
Yeah.
And again, thank you for choosing to connect with us
and we
here.
do love, it is doing something.
It is.
It is. We get comments and messages, and that is what our hearts are thrilled.
Yes.
When we see that it's impacting
When
you.
we hear your
Yep.
stories of how
Yes.
these moments and these live streams and what the church is doing in your life
Yes.
is important, because we don't have the platform that we would like. And sometimes it's hard to connect because of what we're working through.
Yes.
And so when you share your story, what God's doing in your life and what
Yes.
God is doing as a result of what we're doing here, and how you're learning to experience God in your context in your life, we love hearing that, because it just that's one of our purposes,
Yes.
is to bring relevant truth to everyday life. And it's important we say
Absolutely.
everyday life is because we can give you ideals and principles, but if we don't know how to navigate them and integrate them into everyday life, and that's what I value and appreciate about the Bible, is there's so much in there. There's a lot I don't understand.
True.
And
True.
just being honest, there's a lot of
Yeah.
things I can't compute,
Yeah.
but there's enough in here
Yes.
that can transform the way I look at life,
Yeah.
how I navigate through life,
Yes.
and how I experience God. Because
Yes.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
this book is about experiencing God.
Yes.
It's not necessarily theology or doctrine, as many times we were led to believe and we convinced.
Yeah.
It has those, but it's the interaction
Yes.
with a relationship with Jesus. And that's what I find this book does, is it gives us what we need to integrate in our life so that we can be everything God has designed us to be.
Yeah. And he's in the journey. And I love that
the
because
journey.
you know what? Sometimes the things we say, we need.
Yes.
Like me and Jeff go home and we're like, okay, we need to listen to this and we need to actually bring it into our lives because we need it. Because we're real people, we're human,
Yeah,
we
we are.
struggle just like
Absolutely.
you, we fall flat sometimes, we even struggle with faith sometimes. We are real.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, God is in our journey with us.
That's it's
it's
important
powerful.
to establish that, because
Yes.
it's not a thing for me. It's not a crutch for me. God is in my personal journey.
Yes.
And God is in your personal journey. And
Yes.
sometimes I think we don't recognize him because we are
Yes.
looking for something significant maybe, or looking for
Yes.
something in specific. And
Yeah.
when that doesn't happen, we get discouraged. But I'm learning
Yes.
and hearing some of your stories and your journeys,
Yes.
learning to recognize when God does something in our life, or something we learn, or something we experience,
Yes.
and how it shifts our perspective, and how it shifts how we think. And how we think always affects how we live.
Yes.
And that's why I believe this is so relevant for today.
Yes.
And minus all the stuff maybe that we struggle with or we don't know
Yeah.
completely. And I'm glad that doesn't pause our life,
Yes.
because we're just never going to figure everything out.
No.
And in my journey in faith, I've learned so much and experienced so much, and there's a lot of things that I've shifted over time because
Yes.
the thing is, the relationship with Jesus is something that's real. It's
Yes.
every day.
Yes.
And
it grows.
And it grows.
And we
Absolutely.
change our mindsets about stuff.
And
that,
so
that's
again,
the,
our
like,
purpose is to bring everyday reality.
yes.
And so what do we want to talk about
Well,
this
you know what?
morning?
Even just our conversation, because God is very much in the now.
Yeah.
He is present. So we actually want to talk about that the next few Sundays.
Yes.
Is future tripping. How? Future tripping. We're going to go into that a little bit because it's
Yep.
kind of a cool term, we thought. Future tripping.
Future tripping, in one sense, is always looking ahead and missing the now.
Yeah.
And future tripping does several things I think it's important for us to understand. Is future tripping often puts us in a position where we don't deal with now.
That's
We're always
right.
looking to what's
That's right.
ahead.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's good.
Yeah.
We need to know what's up ahead so that
Yeah.
we can plan for it. But what we're talking about this morning is future tripping when we're always looking for the next thing, when we're always looking for the relief, when we're always looking for the
Yes.
miracle, when we're always looking for that breakthrough to happen.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, we're missing the stuff that's happening right here
Yes.
in the now.
Yeah.
And I made a statement, I think, when we were talking about this, that we can't fully enjoy what's ahead without experiencing what's now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too when you go into the Bible, there's a lot of examples all through its
Yes.
pages
Yeah.
of don't miss today.
Yeah.
Granted, we're going through stuff,
Yeah.
let's say, or granted,
Yeah.
today is not a good day. But when we recognize it's what we have,
Yes.
it's what we have in front of us, and we want to give you a sense of perspective that just because something isn't happening the way we want now
Yes.
doesn't define what's ahead of us in the future. And to be able to relish in the moments.
Yes. I like that.
Navigating through the difficulty parts, because
Yes.
that's just part of life.
Yeah.
But learning to relish the moments where
Yeah.
things shift and God speaks into our life, or
Yeah.
God brings someone into our life, or something shifts
Yes.
during the now moments. Because if we learn to recognize, to cherish those moments,
Yes.
it gives us what we need
Yeah.
for what's coming ahead.
And you know what I think sometimes when we face a hard day, like right now, life is hard for you. We want a future trip because, or sometimes it's in the negative, we're fearing tomorrow. We're fearing having
Right.
to walk through the pain or the healing or the trauma we're experiencing. And so we're future, and we can't just be. And
That's a big one.
and sometimes
That's a big one.
and sometimes we go to things that are harmful to us because we don't want to live in the now. It's too painful.
We want to forget what's now.
Yes.
And I understand that. There's some
Yes.
things that we go through we don't want.
Yeah.
But in those moments, if we can find significant things that God is doing and what is turning into our favor
Yes.
in the now moments,
Yes.
it significantly will have impact on us
Yeah.
as we look forward. Because
Yeah.
the Bible talks about that life is a gift.
Yes.
God's given us the gift of life.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't feel like a gift, but it is. So somewhere in the context of now,
Yeah.
I can experience something that God's intended for me to
Yes.
experience.
Yes.
And when I learn to latch onto that, and how we learn to latch onto those things is we begin to identify what God's doing, because
right.
He's always present. He's
He
not
is.
ignoring our trouble.
He is
He's not
present.
silent in our trouble. It's just sometimes we have trouble computing what He's saying,
Yeah.
and what we're
And
experiencing.
sensing his presence in the now.
And many times I think, and
Yeah.
I've been there, I'm waiting
Yeah.
for this big, holy moment.
Yeah. Kabosh.
God is here.
Yeah.
The presence.
Yeah.
But if I learn to recognize that He is just as present
Yes.
when I don't understand something,
Yes.
then when I do,
Yeah.
then it's a perspective shift. Then I want to learn
Yes.
to recognize.
Yes.
Because if we define our life on these holy moments, these present moments where we feel significant shifting,
And that's future tripping.
absolutely.
We're always waiting.
We're waiting for the next thing around the corner. And I've been there so much in my life where
Yes.
I don't like what's happening now, so I'm waiting for tomorrow. And then while I'm waiting for tomorrow,
Yeah.
I'm missing now. And I'm going through a struggle or a situation. I'm waiting for it just to go.
Yeah.
But when I shift my mindset and
Yes.
begin to recognize that what I'm going through is part of the journey, I want to
Yes.
sit back and learn to recognize things in that journey, because other than that, peace is gone. I'm robbed with joy, and I'm
Yes.
struggling with depression. I'm waiting for this to turn out. And when
Yes.
those things, it's like me in the mail. For me, going to the mail is like Christmas. I love getting mail, putting the key in and getting stuff. And when you have weeks, you have days on end, there's nothing. It's like, then I'm not going to go. I know it's a silly illustration, but you're always living with a certain expectation. And when that expectation doesn't get met, it devastates us. Now, I'm not devastated when there's nothing in the mail, but I'm just using that as an example. It devastates us. We're disappointed. And when our disappointments are bigger than the reality of what God promises and speaks over us, we lose hope and we find it hard to walk and navigate through. And we want to say we were there. We are there at times.
We are working through this right now.
We are working through it. So we want to talk about future tripping, and we want to talk it over a few Sundays. And this is kind of a bit of a background for us to go through. But Matthew chapter 6, there's some really powerful concepts that Jesus teaches about future tripping. And I just want to read a couple of verses and just highlight a few things, and then we want to leave you with 3 important realities that can really help us in our context. God's teaching in context.
He sure is.
Living in the now. So in Matthew chapter 6, and starting in verse 25, it says, this is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life. Now, worry is when we are having trouble with now, and that now is affecting our when. Or then. So he says, do not worry about your everyday life, whether you have enough food or drink or enough clothes to wear. And then he says, isn't life more than food? And you have to just listen to what Jesus is saying. He goes on further. So don't worry about your clothing. Look at how creation is looked after. He says that they don't toil, they don't strive, they don't work hard. And yet God cares so wonderfully for creation and the beauty around us. How much more will he certainly care for you? And then he says again, therefore do not worry about these things.
You know what? I want to say something. Because what Jesus is saying, sometimes in the now, our belief is, I am lacking. I don't have enough. God doesn't care. Like, because we're walking through real life stuff. And Jesus says he wants to unveil something that if you watch all of nature and creation, God loves and is looking after every little thing.
And then he puts that in context about how more important are we. So if God looks after the minute details of creation, he's putting in perspective that he will look after us. Now, part of that looking after us is recognizing what he's doing. And I think it's important in Matthew 6, he's wanting us to experience the fullness of now. We love to see the flowers bloom, for an example. But yet, when they're not blooming, they're in a stage of growth and development to get to that point. And you can't get to that finished product without the development stage. And so much of life, for me, is you don't enjoy that process. And what Jesus is speaking about, he said, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about these things, because worry robs us of the moments now. That doesn't mean they're always going to be good. So what we have to do in those moments is recognize that in the moments that we're going through the now, there's treasures to be found. And that's what I like so much. We need to find the treasures. And those treasures can be many things. They can be words that people have spoken to you. They can be things that God teaches you. Those moments can be when you recognize for the first time that there is some good things that are happening because God is the author of good. And when you begin to recognize and see that in the midst are treasures, I want to pick those treasures. Because I know that I have to live in the present.
This is all we have, is the present.
This is what we have.
We have this moment. We have today.
he goes on and he says, after that, he says, this is the challenge. He says, seek first his kingdom
Yeah.
and his righteousness, and he will give you everything he needs. What he does there, this is fantastic. I love the wording because he talks about not worrying. He talks about recognizing that he looks after the minute details of creation and how much more important we are. And sometimes our view of that needs to have right perspective because
Yes.
we don't think God does anything at times in our life. He's
That's right.
distant. But again, it's because we fail to recognize. And what he does here is he just reminds them, listen, this is how valuable you are.
Yes.
He looks after the details of creation, the
Yes.
birds, the flowers,
Yes.
all these different aspects.
How
How
much
much more valuable are you?
you are.
That's telling me,
Yes.
folks,
Yes.
God is invested in our life.
Yes. Yeah.
And that investment,
Yeah.
we recognize living in the now.
And you know what? I love that verse at the end there is seek first his kingdom. Because you know what? Jesus actually brought it. It is actually here now.
Yes.
We're not waiting for his kingdom. We're not waiting for everything he is, his peace. It is actually available right now, today, in our journey.
Yes.
And I feel like he's saying,
That's what I like. It's
Yes.
available in our journey. It's not
Yes.
something we're waiting for.
yes,
I want to continue to learn to not live in when the circumstances turn. I want to enjoy the moments, whether they're difficult or not. I want to find those treasures
yes,
because God is invested.
yes, he is.
God is invested.
He
There's
really
three
is.
things that we want to leave with you here this morning that I think is important to help us in the journey is, first of all, in this whole future tripping aspect, that's when we talk future tripping, that means we miss the present.
Yes,
Or we want to forget the present.
Yep.
Or we don't want to recognize the present.
Yep.
And I want to say that understanding to get where we want to be,
yep,
whatever that is, we have to work with the now.
have to. We can't skip now.
We can't skip it.
We
As much
can't.
as we want to, and much
Yep.
as oftentimes we try,
Yeah,
because we don't like what we see.
yeah,
But again, there's moments in our now
yes,
where God reveals himself
yes,
and opens our eyes to recognize the
Yes.
treasures that we
Yes.
would miss. So we have to understand that
Yes.
getting there, wherever that is,
yeah,
you have to work with now.
yes.
Now is not a curse.
No. it's
Now
a
is
gift.
not a negative. There
Yes.
might be things within it. I agree.
Yeah, yeah,
But that's where God is able, because he's invested. We talked about that.
yes, yeah.
He's able to help us along in
Yeah.
that journey.
And you know what, honey? Even in our journey, when we were so crashing and broken and struggling,
Yes.
financially crashing, and just everything inside of us was such a battle, to recognize later on that in the journey, there was so many gifts that God was
Absolutely.
showing, that he was saying, I
And
got
recognizing those things
Yes.
is powerful. It's
It
life-changing.
is.
The second thing that we want to leave with you here this morning, and we need to wrap up, is we need to understand God is with us. We
Yeah.
are not alone in the getting there.
you. Did you hear that?
We're not alone in the getting there.
Yes.
And we want to speak over your life that you begin
Yes.
to recognize and that God would show up
Yeah.
in those moments in the now
Yeah.
where you can recognize that God is very present.
He is so present.
I love it. He's not in the future, he's in the present.
Yes, and I love that because there was a time when the children of Israel were going to head out of Egypt to be free, and they had been in bondage many years, and God actually revealed himself in a new name. He said, Moses, say, I am, has sent you. And that literally means I am present.
Yes.
I'm in the now. It's who he is, but sometimes we don't know God that way.
Yes.
But he wants to reveal it to you in your present circumstances. I am
That is
present.
incredible.
Yeah.
The third and last thing that we want to say is striving or figuring it out won't get you there any faster.
Did you hear that?
It's where you're at in the process.
It's actually, it says it'll wear you out
Oh, there we go.
in the process. If we're striving to get out of now because we're going somewhere, we're future
Yes.
tripping, you're going to get worn out.
Yes.
We've been there,
Absolutely.
striving and trying to figure out how to get there faster. It's not going to do it.
No.
No.
It's going to wear you out
It's gonna
in
wear
the
you-
process.
Yes. Yeah. So letting go of the striving is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trying to figure out.
Again, we
is a
want to
huge
tell you
thing.
this morning that God is
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah, He is.
He's never distant.
Yes.
And whatever you're going through this week, we just
Yes.
pray God's blessing over your life and that you begin to recognize in the moments of life now
Yeah.
the treasures that are yours
Yes.
for you to experience while you're getting there.
That's right.
Future tripping isn't the answer.
No,
You can't avoid the present
that's right.
by aiming
Yes.
for the future.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So, yeah.
Like us on Facebook. Why don't you subscribe to our YouTube channel?
Yes.
We're always putting things up there. We'd love to connect with you. Hit the
Yep.
notification bell saying, hey, I want notifications.
Yepers.
We would love that. Thank you
And
so much.
We want to wish you an awesome week.
Absolutely. Have a blessed
Yes.
Sunday morning. We'll talk to you next
ya.
week.